cataract surgery, and if a couple of names come into your mind, one of them is Dr. Azam Ali. And of the various qualities of his cataract surgery, one is that he's probably the quickest phaco surgeon around. And I request Dr. Azam Ali to kindly come and deliver his talk. Dr. Azam Ali.
ओके, वैसे तो तनवीर ने मेरा काम काफ़ी आसान कर दिए, because some of the things that I had to cover, तनवीर is already mentioned some of them. So आप लोगों को खाने के लिए ज़्यादा इंतज़ार नहीं करना पड़ेगा. वैसे भी आर्मी ने हुक्म दे दिया है, आर्मी को भूख लग रही है, जनरल साहब ने कहा है भूख लग रही है, जल्दी जा, चुप करके जल्दी से वापस आ. तो आर्मी का हुक्म तो मानना ही पड़ेगा. ओके, so this is my experience of putting in refractive IOLs for the last 7-8 years. Just a little explanation for my specialty in the bottom where it says Mr. Car Surgeon. I just realized, I didn't realize, Mr. is medical retina, Car is cataract and retina. That's what I do. I just realized all of you sitting here are cataract and refractive surgeons. Anybody who does cataract surgery is all, doing refractive surgery to a limited extent. So we are all car surgeons. We should all be called mechanics from now onwards. Mr. is from medical retina and Mr. comes from England. Over there, the moment we do our FRCS, we call him Mr. We're no longer doctors. Okay, so hard facts. We have an increasing population in our country as well. The age of cataract surgery is coming down. The number of cataract surgery is going up. That's why we see so many well-to-do ophthalmologists in Pakistan as well. The awareness of patients have gone up, and the demands, as Tanveer mentioned, are going up and up and up. And now we use these lenses not just for cataract surgery, but we use them for refractive lens exchange as well. Tanveer's already mentioned, in cases where LASIK cannot be done, this is one of the options. The demands of the patients are for functionality as well as for cosmesis. The history of intraocular lenses, I won't bore you with that. It goes back to 1949 when Harold Ridley put his first IOL in Southend Hospital, where I was fortunate enough to train for a year. I'll skip that. Just a little anecdote. The first time when I was showing these attributes of multifocal IOLs, one of my residents consultant to be, who's sitting right here, walked in, and I just happened to ask him, what do you think is going on? He said, oh sir, you're in a good mood again. You're talking about our spouse's characteristics too. She should have a good form, fair color, very good structure, dimensions, nice dimensions, and very accommodative. This word will come again, and she should have a good khandan, good pedigree. So I had to describe the properties of the refractive lenses in a different way. There are three headings under which we look at the properties of refractive lens. They should be made of good material, and the best material available is hydrophobic acrylic. The biomechanics of the refractive lens should ensure that the lens offers you refractive predictability, long-term axial and rotational stability. These are very important qualities for any intraocular lens, but when you talk about premier intraocular lenses, this becomes even more paramount. Then biooptics. Biooptics means that the lens should offer good functional vision. It should emulate the light transmission of a healthy natural lens. It should have enhanced glare tolerance, which a normal lens has, and ensure good photo stress recovery. The desired properties of the optical properties of these lenses should include distance vision like monofocal, intermediate vision at one point at the corneal plane at 60 centimeters, like a 1.5 ad in our glasses, and near vision like a 2.5 ad in our classes. And all of this should be less dependent or not dependent at all on the pupillary size for functional vision in all lighting conditions. So we are asking for quite a lot from this little lens. Intermediate range became a very important demand after the initial multifocal lenses, which were actually essentially bifocal lenses. The bifocal lenses were good for distance and for near, but patients, especially people who were using PCs, were very unhappy. There are different technologies with which these lenses are made. There is the refractive technology, there is the diffractive technology, and now there is extended depth of focus technology. With dinner looming ahead, I don't think I'll bore you with very intricate details. Now, very important point, choosing the power is important. You should either use the optical biometry. If the optical biometry is not available or not doable in case of hard lenses or dense lenses, you should opt for the immersion biometry. Do not use a contact biometer, otherwise you will go wrong. To begin with. As far as the surgical technique is concerned, certain important point, your capsular access should be less than 6 millimeters, just less than 6 millimeters, something like 5.5 or 5 is ideal. You should have a complete cortical clearance, the intraocular lens should be in the bag, and it should be well centered. These are very important things that surgeons need to ensure while they're putting these lenses. This is just to show, these are the things which we see sometimes, a refractive premier lens completely off axis. So not only that it's not doing its job, it's actually counterproductive for the patient. Further surgical tips, in addition to the round, centered capsule, you can have a circular round capsular axis, but if it's off axis, it's not serving its purpose. And remove all viscoelastic and seat the lens. You have to press the lens, make sure that all the viscoelastic from behind the lens is gone. And you ensure as much astigmatic control that you can with your placement of your incision. And if you are dealing with higher order astigmatism, then obviously toric lens or LRIs are an option. There are certain, Tanveer mentioned some of them, certain very important intraoperative exclusion criteria. These include significant vitreous loss, pupil trauma, factors that can impact long-term intraocular lens performance, like zonular damage, like capsular access tear or rupture, and capsular rupture. You should prepare your patient beforehand and tell them that you're going to try putting this lens, but if any of these things happen during surgery, you will not put in this lens, you rather put in a monofocal lens. Now, some important concepts. It can take up to 6 months for neural adaptation. Neural adaptation isn't necessary. Neural adaptation takes place at the level of retina as well as the brain. This is a completely new technology which you're forcing your brain to get used to. So it takes time. It can take up to 6 months. So if the patient starts complaining in 6 days or 6 weeks, you can tell them that, hey, wait, it'll get better. And importantly, operate the other eye early. Otherwise, they get suppression, and this is called second eye syndrome. But second eye syndrome makes no sense to our patients. So I have myself, started telling them, look here, if you go to the shoe shop with your old home shoes or chappals, and you wear one nice tight shoe in one foot and walk out of the shoe store, which foot's gonna hurt? The chappal one or the nice tight shoe one? So obviously the nice tight shoe is gonna hurt. And they cannot walk unless the two shoes are balanced. Either you have the old chappals or you have the new shoes. It takes a while, but this is the easiest concept they can grasp. There are certain contraindications. These are things which you decide before you put the patient on the list. Tanveer mentioned some of them. I'll quickly go through them. Cornea-wise scars or very dry eyes or dystrophies or high astigmatism or irregular astigmatism. Advanced glaucoma or significant retinal or macular disorders or any other significant pre-existing ocular pathology. And previous refractive patients. They make bad patients for refractive IOLs because the calculation of the power is very difficult and you get surprises afterwards. There are certain more important contraindications relating to the patient. Again, Tanveer mentioned some of them, but I'll recap. Professionally, if they are night drivers or surgeons, especially surgeons like we are, ophthalmic surgeons or other people who look through scopes, or people with any other sorts of high vision demands like pilots or firefighters. Then the most difficult task that we have dealing with personality types, finicky patients or PIAs. PIA is my term, I'll tell you what it stands for. Continuing with those preoperative exclusion criteria, Tanveer has mentioned them: hypercritical patients, patients with unrealistic expectations, and patients who actually want to wear glasses. It doesn't make any sense. The easy patient is moderate to high hyperope. They're always very pleased. High myope, more than 6 to 9 diopters. People with significant cataract, but right now we're not talking about cataracts. Older patients, but not too old, because if they're too old, they don't neuroadapt very easily. Younger patients are more finicky. Self-conscious ladies, with apologies to my sisters and mothers and aunties and daughters, self-conscious ladies and patients who are ready to try anything to look good, excellent patients, they just want to get rid of glasses. They don't care what they're able to see mostly. Or patients with lowish expectations, if they don't mind wearing glasses all the time. The difficult patient or the PIA, generally low myopic presbyope, because they're used to seeing without the glasses very well, and suddenly now you're going to put in the lens, which will definitely give them worse near vision than they used to have before. Males worse than females. Patients who are just there for refractive surgery and have no cataract. The PIA stands for P for perfectionist or protester. Protester is this guy who comes in the clinic and the first thing he says is, I've been waiting 3 hours. That means he's starting to protest. He's going to protest more later on. Or the one who says, I want this, I want this, I want this. He's very demanding. Basically, the word is demanding, but I had to fit the I somewhere, so I put I want in place of demanding. A is for aggressive, and some people are really downright aggressive, so they don't want to. This is just to remind you. Our PIA is not doing such a great job either. So there are certain undesired effects of these most of these multifocal IOLs, which you'll have to warn the patient about beforehand. These are halos and glares and night vision issues and near vision problems. Intermediate distance problems used to be unmet in most previously, but now they are. Far vision complaints and people who have jobs which require far vision, especially at night time. So, and you have to tell them that there's no guarantee to be totally spectacle free in more than 80% chance of patients. Poor results can also, in spite of your best pre-op selection, best surgery, you can still have poor results because of these reasons. Number one, not enough time has lapsed after surgery. Whether it's 6 months are not up, or the patient is expecting very good results very soon. Or if there are some complications during surgery, you can't help it and you still put in the lens. CME is something you can try to prevent by using NSAIDs, but still, if it raises its ugly head, it can affect your results. Pupil size, if the pupil either is very well, too much dilated or too tiny, the residual cylinder, or a very common thing. Almost, I think I can, 100% is too much, 99.9% of the patients that we see after surgery and after using drops for a few weeks have dry eye of some degree. My experience was in 3 hospitals, AQS, LNS, and United Hospital. I've used 3 intraocular lenses, Arestor, Panoptix, and the new one is Minimal by this company called SIFI, I would rather call it Sci-Fi. My Arestor experience, which was the beginning of my interaction with multifocal IOLs and PIAs, is based on about 500 implants and a study period about 8 years now. Interestingly, this was basically for cataract patients. The mean age range, the age range was from 46 to say 66. Just remember this slide. 2/3 of the patients were ladies. 1/3 of the patients were males. Remember the slides, I'm going to refer back to this. 1/3 males only. remember the figure. Out of these people, at 6 weeks, people who are patients who attain visual acuity of 20/25, only half. 50% patients attain the visual acuity of 20/25 by 6 weeks. 6 weeks is about the time when we expect the patient to be done with all the drops and you want to just discharge them forever. But interestingly, if you follow them up for longer, which we do, at 6 months, 80% of the patients were at the 20/25 mark. So why was this? This is where the concept of neural adaptation comes in. That's why you have to tell them, don't give up, don't be hasty, it'll get better. So this is a comparison of visual acuity at 6 weeks and 6 months. So very, very heartening for people who are putting in. In spite of your best effort, there are people, in my lot, 7% of the people needed some help with glasses, either for reading or for distance. So 7% had, this was a complaint. The other complaint that the other 7% had was glare and halos. Interestingly, all the people complaining of glare and halos were males. So if you, wait, my slide go. Okay, interestingly, do a little bit of maths. Go back to the 7% complaining of glare and halos, all males. Males were 1/3 of the total population. So out of 30, if 7% complain of glare and halos, what percentage that? Roughly it's about a quarter. So a quarter of males are going to come back complaining to you about glare and halos. That's a very, very, very high number. And some of these people said, I want to get rid of my lens. These are guys who are 6/6 distance, who are n.6 near, yet they're very unhappy because they can't drive at night. So moving on. In conclusion, we had two sets of problems. Number one related to the eye, and the other set of problems were related to the patient. Ocular issues that we encountered were top of the list, glare and halos. You can't run away from them in certain types of lenses, especially the lenses which are diffractive, which basically the whole construction of the lens is such that there are a number of rings which are there to give them the distance, near, and intermediate vision. Those rings are exactly what's causing those problems. Previously in Restore, there were intermediate vision problems which have been solved with the newer lenses. And remember, as Sanvi said, all of these lenses compromise the quality of vision in order to give you the versatility of not having to use glasses. When we look at distance with our monofocals, we are using 100% of the light energy to see what we are seeing. Or when we are reading with our presbyopic prescription, we are using 100% of the light energy to see what you see. But with these lenses, they divide the light energy into the bit of, say, 1/3 of the energy for distance, 1/3 of the energy for intermediate, 1/3 of the energy for near. As a result, the contrast sensitivity will go down no matter what you do. So if somebody wants the best of vision, they're better off using monofocal. Most of the people who want the best of both worlds, or the ones who want not to wear glasses, then this is the only option we have. So as I said, new technologies with trifocal design and with the extended depth of focus are there to help us. The PanOptix was the one which came as an improvement upon Restore, which had, which solved the problems of the intermediate vision. And I'm skipping the intricate ones. So intermediate tasks are very important because the number of tasks which we do at arm's length. We're not always holding things over here and looking at them. We don't eat this. We don't have food up this close. We might like to read or watch or see our mobile up this close, because we don't really eat or do lots of other things this close. Lots of other things. So I'll just skip. Okay, result of PanOptix experience. Eyes incarnate about 80. All of these achieve good focus at all ranges, distance, near, intermediate. So PC users are finally happy. But this is very good. The lens design ensures that there is less dependence on the pupil size. That's also very good. But the main issue is glare and halos. So with all the pluses, there's one negative, which becomes a problem mainly for males who are driving at night. So for most of the ladies and most of the gentlemen who are not driving at night, they are very happy with this lens. So this is my experience, the gist of my experience with PanOptix. Then we moved, I recently, about a year ago, moved on to this new lens called Minival, Leadoff, Sci-Fi or Sci-Fi. This utilizes the phenomenon of spherical aberrations, which is interesting. Spherical aberration, as you know, is the defect in the thick lenses which leads to rays of light from the periphery focusing before the plane, focal plane, and rays of light from the center going and focusing at the focal plane. This results in a fuzzy image, which is supposed to be bad. That's why aspheric lenses came about. This whole thing about aspheric lenses was to improve upon this defect in spherical lenses, which were the initial generations of lenses. But then science took a U-turn. U-turns are becoming more and more famous, and not all U-turns are bad. तो जैसे कहते हैं ना, सारे धब्बे बुरे नहीं होते, सारे U-turns ही बुरे नहीं होते. And this has been my experience with this U-turn. So we went from this aspheric lens back to this. Why? In order to get many focal points. One focal point for distance and one focal point for near, for example. So this lens basically, this is the design, that it induces spherical aberrations, positive aberrations and negative aberrations to achieve this range of focus. If this is the focal point, which is lens, suppose if it were a monofocal lens, it would have been focusing here. With positive and negative aberrations, you get a range. In other words, you get depth of focus. Okay? You get a range. So patients are then able to focus near and distance, and in between intermediate with another advantage. The advantage is that these, unlike their diaphragmatic counterparts, the zones are through smooth transition areas. As a result, there is no jump. As a result, there is no prismatic effect. As a result, there is no halo and glare. So out of 90 eyes implanted these lenses so far, which all had good optical results and good focus at all ranges. So again, PC users happy. The main advantage has been no glare and halos. So finally, driving in night issue is solved with these lenses. So the way I go about deciding is, if a patient is more particular about reading for distance and reading for near and seeing distance at the same time, most of the ladies at home watching TV or reading the paper or going through multiple WhatsApp conversations all the time. We all do. So you shouldn't point out ladies. But anyway, for them, a diaphragmatic lens is good. It gives them good vision at all light situations, and as I said, PanOptix was good for different pupillary sizes as well. But if you're dealing with a guy who's going to go out and drive at night, this is the lens I would choose. See, this is the simulation of halos in a standard multifocal intraocular lens versus this one, which has no rings. So as a result, you don't get as much glare, and the patient is as a result not to. Basically, बात सारी दूध अच्छा हो बुरा होने की नहीं है. कोई दूध बहुत अच्छा होता है, कोई उससे भी ज़्यादा अच्छा होता है, फुल क्रीम होता है, कोई शायद अच्छा होता है, हाफ क्रीम होता है, लेकिन महंगी नहीं होनी चाहिए इसमें. अच्छा, then the last, then we pointed out, लेकिन I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the PIAs. So for people who do not know what a PIA is, this is a hint. Pain in the over there. Okay? So we've got a solution. I actually practiced the solution. The solution is based on rocket science. I looked around and the only thing which looked like a rocket was this. If somebody cannot read it, I can tell you what it is. If you can read it, even better. So this goes exactly where the source of the trouble is. In this case, the source of the trouble is in the upper half, normally it's in the bottom half. So I've actually given it to patients in the clinic. Said, you have a problem, you need to get it, and this will solve your problem. Some of them actually gotten it in the clinic, and they've never complained again. Seriously, no jokes. Okay, since we have the topic of this exercise was refractive surgery. So as I said, cataract surgeons are all refractive surgeons as well. Refractive lens exchange is the same surgery, same lenses, done when the patient doesn't have a cataract. So out of these results that I showed, overall about a quarter of the patients for all of these IOL types can be classified as refractive lens exchange. And then about 2/3 were high myopes, more than 6 diopters, who were not considered suitable for LASIK, and a third were either hyperopes or presbyopes. Age range was from 25 to 50. Over 50, even if they did not have a cataract, I excluded them because theoretically we just clumped them with the cataract patients. 2/3 were again females. We did OCT in all high myopes, and we also did 360 or prophylactic laser for high myopes who had peripheral retinal degeneration. I don't want to subject a patient to cataract surgery for refractive lens exchange and find that he is detaching or something later. Outcome-wise, these were happier. The higher the refractive error, the happier the patient. Number one, they're grateful for functionality as well as obviously for cosmesis. The one important point: when you take out a lens, natural lens, from a very high myope and put one of these lenses in, you are actually increasing the image size of the fovea. So as a result, the visual acuity jumps up. So they are happier, not just because they're getting rid of glasses, they're happier because the visual acuity is improving. So you actually doing them dual service. And females, generally, as I said, in this lot are more accommodating, so happy. Males were also happy because they were dating. As far as RLE versus LASIK is concerned, I don't want to repeat things which have already been said. So take home message: do implant refractive IOLs in cataract patients and refractive patients, but remember CCC, which in this case is not capsular access, curvilinear. Capsular access actually is to remind you, do it carefully, which is ocular selection, do it correctly, which means correct surgery, correct surgical technique, and do it very cautiously, which is patient selection. Again, make sure you avoid PIAs. You can counsel as much as you can, and you need to counsel, or you need to have a counselor to take care of this, because unless patients understand right at the beginning what they are getting into, your life can be a living hell. So vision without glasses is good, but may God help us all to achieve that. Thank you.